What is up, my friends, and welcome to another video. Last weekend I played in Home Story Cup, a big offline event in Germany. Met a lot of you guys, which was freaking awesome. Hope I can come again next year so we can, have some more chat and autographs and whatever. It was all great fun. But now, onto the tournament itself. I ended up having a pretty fantastic run in the tournament. Way better than what I was expecting. And today I'm going to share a couple of these games with you guys. I think I'll probably pick like my 3 favorite games or so and share them with you guys. If you guys have watched the tournament, you already know of one game that's going to be in here. Let's just say it had something to do with the unit, the Reaper. A very infamous game. I think most of you probably already know what I'm talking about. Probably going to do that one after this. But anyway, the first game is against Gerald. So my group was me, Zaun. Zaun is a very strong Korean Protoss. He was the favorite in the group. Then there were Gerald and Elaser, who were actually seed 2 and 3 above me. They were pretty much predicted to fight for the second place in the group. And then there were Hydra and Moja, 2 underdogs, slightly below 6,000 MMR, both of them 1 Terran, 1 Protoss, who were kind of fighting for the Dark Horse spot. We're trying to get a couple wins there as the underdog spot. And I was fighting against Gerald first, followed by Elaser, so I was pretty much fighting for the advancement right away. Only 2 people advanced out of these 6 players. And I pretty much needed to either upset Zaun, who, if you guys didn't know, he recently won the EWC qualifier in Korea, like first place. So very, very good, especially against Terran. And I didn't think I was going to beat him, so I really needed to beat Gerald and Elaser. At this point in the series, the score was actually 1-0 for me. The reason why I didn't show the first game is because, honestly, I felt like I just got really lucky more than anything else. Game number 1, I did a tank push.
Give us a little bit of what happened in game number 1.
Yeah, I did a tank push and he died.
Very good.
He missed my army and I killed his third base pretty much for free. From that point on, I didn't actually play the game that well, to be honest. Like, I was still a little shaky first game of the tournament, but I managed to close it out. This game is going to be a lot cooler. So a little bit of backstory. Throughout this video, I'm going to be explaining all my thoughts and stuff, why I did certain builds, what I thought of the matchup, blah, blah, blah. So TVP is, generally considered the hardest matchup to play right now out of all the matchups. And I consider that to be the case for me as well. Like, TVP was very, very hard. My practice for this event was that I quite literally played only 10 games with Terran and 40 with Protoss. I was planning to switch back and forth. Probably going to show you guys a very cool Protoss game later as well. And first, I was losing every single Terran versus Protoss, so I was very close to just picking Protoss against every Protoss in my group, because TVP was just a little too hard for me. Well, then I started trying to play some of the uThermal classics, like really going back to the old build orders and see what worked. And I ended up finding some pretty good stuff. So in the end, I got a couple of good builds. I was pretty comfortable against Gerald as well. I know his playstyle very well from when I was still an active pro. So I came up with a couple of good builds. First game I went for a Widowmine drop into Liberator into tank push. I think that's actually Terran School number 1. You guys might cringe at this because I do cringe at this, but whenever I watch my first video, it's kind of funny to see how I was just like too shy to talk and stuff, and I was very quiet. But that's pretty much the build I did. Terran School number 1, my first ever build order. For this game, I was going to go for a fast third command center. Here I was trying to be cute with the Reaper grenade, trying to bounce myself over. He already walled this off, so it didn't matter. Now let's see. What my opponent's doing here, to me, looks like the build that is the reason why Terrans struggle against Protoss right now. I can actually give you guys a very quick recap of that. So the problem with PvP for most Terrans is that Protoss players have just figured out the way to play a little bit too well. Like, sometimes it's not even a patch. A lot of people think it's the patch that made PvP difficult. I actually think it is just that they figured out how to play really well. Like, the patch with energy recharge definitely helped. Makes them, pretty much invulnerable to crazy cheeses because they can scout pretty much for free with the sentry. But the problem for me is mostly they get the map control with the blink. They figured out how to get more economy. They control the game the entire way through. And then they just end up having 4 more bases and way more gateways than you. So what I wanted to make sure of is that I didn't let the game go to the state where it is too easy to play for the Protoss. So I wanted to do something that would make it very complicated for them. So I wanted to do tricky pushes. Or in this case, I'm going to go for a fast third command center, which is a bit less common. Try to get an advantage that way. But the Banshees were a very key aspect of my play, because Banshees I think is actually the #1 unit you can do damage with against Protoss, so I wanted to do a Banshee build no matter what. I combined the two. I end up playing faster Command Center with Banshees. Now, this is actually very fortunate for me because I don't think... Okay, he did actually scout this before. Yeah, I do remember that the casters were talking about this. They were talking about how much I was doing mind games. Like, he saw the cloak, so do I cancel it or do I not cancel it as a double mind game? What I was thinking is I need the Banshees to maybe get like a chance at least at doing some damage. So even if he scouted it, I still wanted to go for it. I was hiding them in the top left until I had 2 of them, because then you can one-shot probes through a battery. Very important tip here, by the way. If you go against Protoss, really you want to go in with 2 Banshees. For the most part, throughout all the matchups, that is the case. But against Protoss, for sure. Now, this was... I'm going to pause here because I want to explain this a little more in depth. Actually, I don't have to pause. It's gonna pretty much speak for itself, I think. What I wanted to do is a lot of Terran players started doing these desperate pushes because PvP is difficult. And Protoss players started responding by making extra gateways early, already warping in Zealots. So what I did is I went for a fake push. As you can see, Stalkers were out on the map. He was warping in mass Zealots. I think, yeah, he didn't even get an upgrade yet from the Forge. He was just focusing on crushing my push. So I did a fake push, baited his Stalkers to the front, and then sent the Banshees in. This is one of those techniques that I thought of. It's, like I always say, no matter how difficult a matchup is, no matter how good your opponent is, there are always tricks you can do. And with this move, I definitely got myself a decent little bit ahead. Now, I can speak to this very well from a Terran PvP. I should have saved this Banshee, by the way. A little bit of a mistake by me for sure. I think I was focused on one tank that I saw earlier that was hanging out there. So from a Terran PvP, this is definitely a comfortable spot. I killed a lot of workers, but the problem is I do not have any of my upgrades, and Terran really needs to hit timings, right? You don't just want to attack randomly. You either want to have your army assembled or you want to hit at the same time as the upgrades. So even though I did a lot of damage, I'm not going to be able to attack, and my opponent can just chrono boost from 3 Nexi, which is exactly what he's doing. And by the time I do have my upgrades, he's going to have Storm. So even though the Banshees did definitely give me a lead, I'm not denying that. It's not the kind of lead where I can win the game right away after 2 minutes, you know, by hitting a timing. Like, that's not going to happen this game. But still, it's quite nice, and I'm always happy when my crazy moves work out. You guys know that from my videos. Whenever I do a crazy cheese, I love to see it work, you know. Especially the mind game part, I love to see it work, and that's exactly what happened. The fake push... If I would have pushed, I would have lost the game instantly, by the way. Like, he would have mopped up the push, counter-attacked, and I wouldn't have been able to get enough units out, especially without Stim, to hold that counter. So that's exactly what I needed to do, and I'm very happy with that. Now, interestingly enough, he wasn't mining from these gases fully. I wonder if he did that on purpose or not. It's actually a thing that happens sometimes when you kill a couple workers in the harassment, because they are going to have to pull back, and then they might not resaturate the gas. So I'm trying to run around here. The scariest thing in this moment is that you don't really want to drop, because if you drop, there's a chance that Blink Stalkers blink under it, and then you can just lose 20 supply right away, right? So I wanted to move over the ground. I was figuring if he attacks me or if he catches my army, I can just run and stim away. And this gets very interesting because I know he had Stalkers down here, so I was gonna go for those Stalkers, but then I wasn't aware of this prism. Yeah, just fantastic move by my opponent here, and I'm gonna lose 6 Marines for it, probably both medevacs as well. And this was a big problem. So on one hand, it was good because first I denied the 4th base, and that's what I mentioned earlier on. You want to kill the 4th base or at least do some damage so it doesn't become too easy for them to grow. But I did lose a lot of momentum there by losing 2 medevacs. Luckily for me, I still have 4. And what you're seeing right here is pretty much my main plan for macro games in PvP. So my philosophy here is that I don't believe in pretty much the classic standard way to play PvP. Like, you know, you get Ghost out, you get Vikings against Colossus and stuff. I even talked a bit with Ryung about this, actually, one of the best Korean Terrans, and he agreed with me. He really liked my style in this tournament. Where if you play Viking Ghost, what happens is your army becomes very slow. Okay? You don't want to walk around with Viking Ghost because you kind of need to be in position and have the concave. Like, if disruptors get fired at your Ghost or if you get stormed without paying attention, you're just going to get absolutely cooked. So and that's where it comes into play, where I think Protoss becomes a little bit easier again. because, you know, your army is slow, they have the mobility, they are the ones that have the chance to do all the outplays. So I don't want to play like that, so I literally made no Ghost and no Vikings, and I just went for a full outplay style with mass medevacs. So here I leave my tanks behind. At this point, I actually think this is a completely fine play. I think what happened here is that I scared him off from attacking my army early on by sieging the tanks. That allowed me to get my drop in safely. His army was not doing anything too meaningful for quite a while, and we end up getting a lot of damage done. And if you think about what I just said about your army being slow, tanks obviously tie into that pretty well, because if you have tanks, that's a big problem with tanks in general, by the way, whether you play against Zerg or Protoss. Against Terran it's fine, but against Zerg and Protoss in particular, is it makes your army slow, and you have to be sieged, and not just that, you have to be sieged in a good position. And I want to be playing a very fast game here, so at this point I don't need to defend pushes anymore with Colossus and Stalkers or anything like that, so I actually don't really need the tanks anymore, so that's great. Now here I'm doing some splitties against the High Templars. Actually, I do really like this scenario because that's one of the things that I know I'm still very good at. It's just micro against the High Templars. You can see most storms, besides those disgusting ones earlier on over here, have missed, and that's really good. Now I'm forcing a recall. Gonna go drop back in the main, and I'm still fighting over here. And since I'm making mass medevacs, as you can see, I have 11 medevacs, even taking a little bit of damage on my army is really not that bad because I can heal it back up. If you're playing Viking style, you need to be very careful with that because your medevac energy is limited, right? Now, as you can see, these drops are just absolutely paying dividends right now. These Stalkers try to blink after my medevacs, but instead they're all going to get taken down here, which is very, very nice. I got a drop over here as well, dealing some damage. And at the same time, I'm adding another element here, which is something you don't often see in PvP. Because the Ghost was nerfed from 2 to 3 supply, Terran armies typically can't go high worker count anymore, because if you get 80 workers, now your army is too small with Ghost. But what I'm trying to do is I'm actually just playing mass workers. As you can see, I have way more gas than my opponent here as well. I'm trying to play mass workers and just trade all the time. So I'm trying to not max out. I'm just trying to trade because I have a better economy, so trades are always going to be good for me. Widow Mines is also, that's why I'm making Widow Mines, that's the reason. Because Widow Mines are going to make it a lot easier to trade fast. They're going to be good against Zealots, etc. Just going to kite away. As you can see, the supply for my opponent is dropping and my income is way better still. Now, even I actually just noticed I did a classic mark. This is actually one of the all-time classics. I've noticed I did this in my pro career, my YouTube career. For some reason, I always built 2 sensor towers next to each other. And on one hand, you would say that's kind of decent because, you know, if one gets sniped, you still have the other one, but it still feels pretty dumb to see 2 circles on the minimap like that. Now, if we look at the situation, the game still looks pretty even economy-wise. It's not actually really the case here. First of all, my opponent is not mining gas at all. That's why his mineral income is higher. So, you know, these High Templars are limited. Even the Stalkers are limited. Like, if you lose 8 Stalkers, you're going to have to replace them. That's 400 gas. As you can see, he does not have that right now. The upgrades are also quite late because he wasn't able to afford them for the longest time on such low gases. And his army supply is quite small. Now, I'm going to continue doing the same thing, even at this point where I have an advantage, where I just try to hit from 2 sides. This really, everything I've said so far just ties in together. Like, I want to get the trades, and I don't want to make it too easy for my opponent. The straight-up fights, I feel like Gerald's going to do very well. Like, he has Storms, he has Immortals. An easy way to look at it is, like, even if you have good splits, what happens if you're splitting your army is that your units are not shooting, right? So if you're in a situation where you have to split through an entire battle, it means it's not going to be a very efficient fight for you at all because your units aren't shooting. So if it's like 2 big armies fighting against each other, the Protoss is going to win that trade. So what I'm trying to do is just split up his army. As you can see, he has to do very awkward storms like this, and we managed to snipe 2 more bases here. Also, one thing that I did is add even more barracks. Normally, Terran players get 5 barracks, then they start getting the tech units like Ghost Vikings, and then eventually they might go up to 8. Well, I have 11 barracks. And another thing that I really like with this style is I went for a fusion core specifically to get the medevac upgrade, right? Normally you would go there for Liberator range. That does not work with this style at all. Obviously, I'm making Liberators. That's mostly because I had so many medevacs already, and they're going to be pretty good at doing stuff like this. But the medevac upgrade is going to be more important than going for lib range. Here, I was really close to killing that prison with 3 Templars inside. Sadly, barely didn't get it. Same time, I'm dropping over here. And as you can see, the style is working out, because even though some of the trades are inefficient, I traded efficiently, despite having way more income this game and not even making any tech units, so that's pretty crazy. But I was gonna say, this trade over here was pretty inefficient, but at the same time I kill Eco over here, I'm going up to a 5th base. Pretty sure, yeah, exactly, I was gonna go up to a 6th base at the same time. Trades like this are also very nice. It's not normally pretty tempting to try and trade with Stalkers, but in this case it's gonna be super efficient for me because I am the rich one. He's not used to it. A little bit of cute Marauder micro there. Don't try it at home, you might lose all your Marauders. Unless you want to be extra cool, then definitely do it. Now here, this is exactly what he needs to do. He's standing in front of my army. Once again, we don't really want to fight that. What I decided to do is just siege my Liberators over here and try to stay out of range of the storms. Notice where the Templars are and where my army is. I'm trying to barely stay out of range of that. Now there's a full HP or a full stack Prism over there, and we actually get the Prism with 4 High Templars inside. Not gonna lie, we were sitting in the same booth and I could definitely see a little bit of a reaction like that, you know, like, oh my god, or whatever. Probably said something in Polish. I don't know what he would have said, but I could definitely see a reaction when I sniped that Templar. Now here I saw his Stalkers move the other way, and I have 2 Liberators, so I can stand here pretty comfortably. And now it is time for some splitties. My army is getting very big. I'm actually very happy with these splits. These actually look pretty fantastic, not gonna lie. I'm pretty proud of my splits normally, but this one was pretty great. Storms are not connecting, and now it's time to kite forward. 173 supply against 90. And this was the first series of the day for me. And I was just extremely happy with it, right? First series of the day, one I have to win, like I mentioned in the intro. Pretty much have to beat Gerald and the Laser, and this was a comfortable dub for the first one. And more importantly, I thought it was a very cool game to watch. And it was a different style that can maybe help Terrans out against Protoss, right? Terrans having a hard time against Protoss. This is a way to play against them. And it's also a very fun way to play. And when those two combine, that is always a very good feeling. Now, anyway, that was just the first game I'm going to show you. Let's go to the infamous game against Elaser. All right, so this was the second series of the day against Elaser. At this point, the score was also 1-0. Pretty similar story to the last series, actually. The first game was not too memorable. It was actually kind of funny because my girlfriend really wanted to see me do a Proxy Reaper. So I went for the Proxy Reaper, and I ended up getting an Extreme Builder to win because he went for a Proxy Hatchery. So the first game I pretty much won for free without having to do anything because of the idea of my girlfriend. So that was fantastic. But this game, yeah, I mean, definitely the most infamous game of the tournament, at least from my side. The crowd went absolutely wild. I could even hear it in the booth with this game. So this was definitely quite something. But I guess I could tell you something about my matchup against Elaser. Historically, I had a pretty good win rate against him. And in particular, he would struggle against my Reaper builds. Like just in general, when 3 ranks Reaper, before 2 nerfs, because they got nerfed pretty heavily twice. Even after the first nerf, he was still struggling against it. And that's why I got a lot of wins against him. And I was like, I honestly don't have that much for TVZ. I think TVZ is definitely a more comfortable matchup to play than against Protoss. I don't think I've seen too many complaints about it, but I personally did not have anything in TVZ. And the problem with me for TVZ is that since I don't practice as a pro anymore, I'm not as fast as I used to be. I'm honestly still surprisingly fast. I actually kind of surprised myself in this tournament quite a lot. But it is a big battle of mechanics for the most part, right? And against Zerg, I feel like it's kind of taken to an extreme. If you're very fast, TVZ, you can be super good at it without even being good strategically. But if you're missing just like a little bit of speed, you're going to struggle to both deny the creep and macro at the same time and hit your timings. Especially the creep part, I find pretty freaking difficult to do. But anyway, I decided to go for 3 ranks Reaper, and I can tell you guys that's not where it's going to stop this game, okay? You're going to have to see, but this is definitely not where it's going to stop. Now, the reason why I did it on this map is, first of all, this map has a delicious wall, by the way. 1 depot, 2 barracks, add-ons fit on the outside. Obviously, I got a bit lucky that I spawned on this side, but even here, the wall would have been pretty comfortable. So definitely a good map for 3 ranks Reaper. This, however, kind of sucked for me a little bit. I wasn't aware of quite how fast this Roach Warren was, but it was extremely fast. And I can tell you guys from my POV as the person who has probably made the most Reapers in StarCraft 2 history. Actually, I should get that title officially. I never even thought about it, but that's a pretty cool title to have. But anyway, I prefer to play against Zerglings just because there is more micro going on. Against Roaches, for the most part, you don't I mean, micro is actually very useful, don't get me wrong. If you fight against roaches, please don't give up on the micro. It is still important. But it is a little bit more of a numbers game than against Lynx. Like, against Lynx, you can get, like, a really good initial engage. You can get, like, a couple delicious grenades, and that can make a pretty big difference. Now, this is the first moment when I realized it was going to be roaches, by the way. If I noticed a little faster, I could have done some more damage. The problem was that I didn't think someone would go roaches that fast, right? I thought he probably just had spent all of his larvae already. The reason why I realized it was roaches, by the way, if you guys are curious, is because there was no lynx on this cliff. I thought that's where his lynx were all this time. They were just waiting for my Reapers to jump up while defending at the front with queens. Sadly, I did waste a little bit of time there. Now I see there is no extra base. And here, things get a little spicy. I wasn't necessarily planning on going for upgraded Reapers to begin with. But since he had so many roaches here already, I kind of thought he was going to go for an all-in. So what I decided to do was I dropped the engineering bay, as you can see, and more barracks. The reason why I did that is because I like countering all-ins when I do 3-Rax Reaper. Sometimes, not always. Actually, very nice roach snipe there. Just for by going for +1 attack on the Reapers. Traded 1 roach for 1 Reaper. Here I just tried to go for the Ravager. Really good micro by Elaser there, by the way. Props there. Instead, I'm going to go for the drones here, throwing a couple grenades on the ramp. Didn't end up being my best moment here, as you guys could see. I think I lost 6 Reapers already. In total, I maybe killed 3 drones and 2 roaches or so. Is that correct? No, I must have killed drones, right? Huh. It's probably a couple cancelled buildings, actually. It's kind of hard to tell. So I probably killed 1 roach and 2 drones or something. Even worse than I thought. So this was just a horrible start. And if we're being honest here, you as the viewer probably think the same. Everyone in the venue thought the same. Me looking at this game now, I think the same. This game just looks over. Like, I went for mass Reapers. I didn't do anything. It's not even that I did no damage. I even lost 6 Reapers when Reapers are a massive snowball unit. My opponent's 40 workers already and better tech. Like, this game looks absolutely horrible. My answer, another barracks. More Reapers, right? What else are you going to do at this point? Now, you do want to keep being aggressive. Then there's a couple things you're afraid of when you play Reapers, right? The first thing you're afraid of is the moment link speed finishes, because then you have to be very careful with your Reapers, right? Second thing is just any kind of tech. So this could be bailing speed in particular, road speed, any kind of mutas, for example, any kind of lair tech, even Hydras really, but that I've never seen anyone counter my Reapers with Hydras, probably will never see it. But any kind of tech in that way is the ultimate counter to Reaper, so that's why you want to be aggressive, especially in the time before road speed finishes. This was a very good dive by me. I wanted to get the Ravagers as well. Sadly for me, he was ready with the Transfuses, but it was a pretty good moment over here. Now, the economy is actually very similar. My eco is actually slightly better because I have mules. Actually, it should be slightly better. It looks like it's pretty similar anyway. A mule is just 3 SCVs after all. Let's look at the situation now. I have as many Reapers as he has Roach Ravager, and he has 8 more on the way. The army supply is 19 against 58. I'm down to 64 against the 100 supply, which is pretty freaking painful. Now, what I thought was actually happening here was that he was going for roach speed. Instead, he just spent all of his gas on making more roaches, which, especially on creep, is totally fine, because as you can see, I can't really do anything on creep. I really wanted to kill that Ravager. I'm kind of surprised that it survived. 1 health. Oh god, it survived on literally 1 health. A Ravager is 100, by the way, so it's very nice to be able to kill those. And here I was faced with a big problem. My opponent has an absolutely gargantuan army, and let's look at my base for a second. I have 8 naked barracks. I don't have a single upgrade building. I do have the +1 attack, which he doesn't have, but I don't have stim or combat shield or concussive shells, marauders, anything that can help me defend this, right? This is a bit of a problem. Now, this is when I started seeing the future a little bit. And that is what I saw, is that he is gonna attack me with Roach Ravager, and I would have a chance by attacking with my SCVs. So the thing is, my Reapers have a crazy amount of DPS, right? They have a lot of DPS, especially with +1. But his army would kill the Reapers. So what I did, as soon as he was even getting close here, is I pulled the SCVs already, because I want the SCVs to tank. So the SCVs are going to go towards the Roach Ravager. Here, I'm right-clicking the Ravagers. He doesn't have transfuses now, so now we can actually pop them like balloons. As you can see, they're just dying 1 by 1. That's like 7 Ravagers for 700 I just killed. And now I still had a couple of SCVs left. And by the time the SCVs died, I still had enough grenades that I could shoo the roaches away and get a favorable trade. So many of these Reapers are low HP, but we are gonna survive here. And this was actually a very funny moment from the stream. Obviously, I watched the VOD again later. You could see Laser's face like, like, what on earth just happened to my units? How is that even possible? Now, this one, I have 21 Reapers. He's making 13 roaches. Here, I knew I just had one option. Like, I just had to go for it directly. There's no waiting here. I'm just gonna run over creep. We have to go instantly. And to my absolute joy, we find the queens right away because the transfuses have been hella annoying so far. We kill every single Zergling, every single queen, and now this is how you want to micro the Reapers. You can fight, and you can just throw grenades under the roaches, so half of them bounce back, half of them bounce forward. As you can tell, the supplies are getting closer. At this point, we have 28 Reapers against 8 roaches, and keep in mind, I still have that +1 attack. That queen is actually going to die to the grenade, which is crazy. GG is called, and even now I have a smile on my face because this was one of the craziest dubs I have gotten in a long time. Let's just go back 1 second, or not 1 second, like 1 minute or so, and look at this situation. 137 supply against 87. It's 96 supply against 32, of which 8 supplies in production, by the way. So I have 24 Reapers against, how much is this? This is like 12, 14 supply or something. I have 24 supply, army supply against 84. The math could be wrong on that because I'm too excited and my brain feels like it's drugged up right now. And we actually managed to do it, which is freaking crazy. One of the craziest dubs I've gotten in a very, very long time. And remember what I mentioned in the first game, like we needed to beat Gerald and Elaser to have a chance at advancing, and we beat them both, and we beat Elaser in this fashion, which is absolutely insane. Now I want to show you guys one more game, and it's going to be a PvP against Zaun. Let's do it. All right, the final game I'm going to show you guys is also from the final series of the group. As you can see, the score here is 1-0 for Zaun. At this point, my score was 8-1. I was already guaranteed to advance to the next round. I had beaten everyone else 2-0 at this point. Gerald, Elaser, Hydra, and Moja. And the first game against Zaun, I played Terran. I tried to play something very cool, an absolute uThermal classic, going for the Thor Banshee. Pretty tight game, actually, but in the end, he found the right timing to beat me with the Mass Immortals before I could really get Mass Banshees out, so that was game number 1. And just so you guys know, my plan for this entire tournament was to play Terran, and then if I lost, I would pick Protoss, but in the first 4 series, I didn't lose. So this is actually my first game of Protoss in the tournament. Now, like I mentioned in the game against Gerald, PvP is quite difficult, especially for me. And I actually liked my PvP a little more, but it depends on the opponent. Like, for example, Gerald, I would consider a player that is not as good against Terran, and he's extra good against Protoss. So against him, I would be less comfortable with Protoss. Against a player like Zaun, extremely good in PvT, I would feel a little more comfortable with Protoss, actually. I know it sounds crazy, because I know my Terran is better. But with Protoss, I feel like there's some tricks you can do. I have some very tricky openings that can give me a lead, especially if you don't know my stuff, right? So here we are. I'm going to go for a 1-gate expansion here against the 2-gate opening of Zaun. Now this is where it gets very interesting already, because most commonly in this scenario, the player that is 2-gating would go for an all-in, right? But here, he might not be sure how good my Protoss really is, right? Like he might be thinking, okay, this is someone's off-race. I do not want to go for the all-in here. I'm going to go for macro. And that is indeed what he's going to end up doing. As you can see, there's no proxy pylon on the map. Normally, you would want that to be there already. Now, so far, everything is pretty normal here. I made the Zealot because he's inevitably going to block that. I go for Zealot into Sentry, and everything looks completely standard. Now, one thing I wanted to mention about that last game that's extremely cool, by the way, is I didn't realize it at the time. I realized it later. But I won that entire best of 3 against the Laser, not making a single non-Reaper unit. That's insane, right? I didn't make one Marine or some Hellions or anything. I literally only made SCVs and Reapers. I dropped some Mules, and that is literally it. A full best of 3 against one of the best Zergs in Europe, and I thought that was freaking crazy when I found that out. Now, this is going to be the first challenge of this game. I'm going to have to defend these Stalkers with my sentries. Yeah, the problem is that I actually made a big mistake. Small, big mistake. Kind of depends on if you get punished or not with this pylon. This third pylon should have been in a natural. That way I would have had the battery already. Now I had to make another pylon and then the battery. So that's definitely a mistake by me. If you guys are wondering why we're dancing back and forth so much, is because he knows if I force field him, he's going to lose the Stalkers. I know if I miss the force fields, I will struggle later on. So that's pretty much what happened here. I'm sending out this Phoenix to see what else is in front of my base. Looks like he had 4 Stalkers. I would have preferred to be able to scout his base, because at this point I'm not 100% sure yet if he's all-inning me or not. But I did see that there were 4 Stalkers in front of my base, so that's fine. Now here, these force fields were not the greatest, and this is going to be the worst one of all. I'm going to miss that force field. Sadly, that would have netted me 2 Stalker kills, but it is not going to happen for me. And that was a little painful. I can give you guys a little bit of insight there in my mentality. I was not too nervous for this tournament in general, but I do tend to get nervous when I play other races. Mostly because people really tend to give a lot of meaning to them, you know? Like, if I lose with my Protoss, people would say that my Protoss is bad. And I want people to know that my Protoss is not that bad, you know? So I was quite nervous to play Protoss, so that was honestly a bit of a tough start. I should have been further ahead there. In the end, we're still in a perfectly fine position. Basically, to summarize this position is I'm down a gateway and I'm up in eco slightly. The tech, well, I think if I was a really good Protoss, the tech here would be ahead for me. I'm going to explain this, don't worry, it might sound confusing, but because I'm not that good of a Protoss, the tech is slightly behind for me. And the reason I say that is because I am not comfortable yet playing the mass Immortal style. A lot of Protoss players, they play Immortal style into Zealot Archon. I have not really practiced that kind of style. I don't really know how to play it very well, so I always want to end up going for Blink. So for that reason, purely because I'm going to force myself to play Blink Stalkers because I'm comfortable with that, I felt like I was going to be slightly behind in terms of tech here. Overall, I totally like the position in my game, though. Like, I have 2 Immortals. My opponent does not have such high-tech units. I have a couple more workers. I'm going up to 4 gateways already. He's going to do that as well. It's actually quite interesting about Zaun. I didn't really see that style too much when I was playing ladder or anything. But he actually likes to go Blink, Robo, and 4-gate before 3rd base. So when these buildings finish, our tech is going to be pretty much identical. His Blink is faster. I have 2 Immortals and a Prism already. I guess that's pretty much where the difference is. And yeah, we're going to have to play further on from here on out. Now, he does have more Stalkers than me, I believe. 7 against 3. That's always very scary. If you play against really good players like Zaun is, there are some units that you would rather not see. If you play against a player that's really good, you would rather have them have units that can't outplay you that hard, if that makes sense. Like, if they get blinks, like, for example, if you play against Max Packs, or maybe even worse, if you play against Clem's Protoss in a TVP, you're gonna get absolutely tortured by Blink Stalkers, so you would rather see him have Robo units or Stargate units than Blink Stalkers, right? Because you know you're just in for a hell of a time. Now, what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna do a style that I really started doing on the ladder super recently, but I really liked, actually. And that is that I go for 6-gate Blink Forge. So for the most part of my Protoss career, I was playing a style that I saw Christianer do, who is a Polish Protoss player, which is basically to only go 2 gases, sometimes 3, and then you just make like 10 gates, Warp Prism, and you play Mass Zealot Stalker from there on out. Playing on the ladder, I really started enjoying just playing Mass Stalker a bit more. Like, it just felt like you had a little micro potential, and I could get myself out of some pretty bad situations. Now, here you can see, my opponent is going to go for a Robo Bay. Our 3rd bases are, well, roughly around the same time. His is delayed by about 20 seconds or so, but it's a very close time anyway. Now, this was very painful for me, and remember this one, guys. I lost the Warp Prism here to a snipe. Actually, a pretty big mistake. And I can actually explain that mistake to you guys as well. Here I recalled because the Adepts were about to shade into my base and I didn't have Warp Pins. Ended up being very good for me because I'm going to catch both Adepts, I believe. I don't think that one should escape. So that was a pretty good moment for me. Basically spend a recall to kill 2 Adepts for free, which is not that bad. Now, I wouldn't entirely call it for free. Sometimes I call it trade free when I lose 5 Stalkers. Because I killed something important. Here, I wouldn't call it free because recall can actually be very important. Now, if we look at the situation here, my army is a lot bigger, but he does have the sentries and he went for Disruptor tech. That's the reason why my army is bigger, by the way, if you're wondering. He's more setting up for the late game. He's already getting charge and... Oh no, I am getting +1 at the same time. For some reason, I got a little confused there. He's going for charge and disruptors. I made more units instead. Now, I'm always pretty scared to go up ramps to take fights like this, purely for the reason that I can't judge them very well. I've noticed that it's the same when I play ZVZ. If I play Roach against Roach or Stalker against Stalker, I can't really judge whoever is going to win this fight. Now, this fight looks pretty good for me because now I do have the choke. I should have used the sentries to put force fields over here for sure, but I was more worried about dodging Stalker shots and disruptors. Now, this is when the Warp Prism comes into play, guys. If I was able to warp in 6 more Stalkers in the fight all the time, this would be a very different story, but now I'm going to be able to get pushed back. There's a couple more Stalkers on the reinforcement. Blink to dodge that disruptor. You can see when disruptors are off cooldown, by the way. They kind of light up, so that's when you know. Now I see that disruptor is on cooldown. I decide to blink on top of it. I snipe it before the shot goes off. But like I mentioned, guys, if I had the Prism here, I would have 6 extra Stalkers, but for now, I'm going to have to back off. At the same time, I made a little bit of a... Well, I was going to say beauty error, but honestly, it's a pretty big mistake. If you look at my third, you'll see that I have a lot of workers here, 33 out of 16. If you guys have watched my videos before, you will know that it's not crazy for me, but here, it was actually an accident because I wanted to start this 4th base while taking the attack. I think I might have even queued it, but accidentally pulled the probe back. So this was a little bit of a painful moment. I wanted to saturate that base right away. Instead, I had to still build it. So I had all these probes, but I couldn't use it. If you look at the income, it's going to look pretty similar. I'm slightly ahead because he's not fully saturated here, but I could have been further ahead, so that sucks a little bit for me. If I had this base, I would have been able to make the extra gate base already, and that would have been quite nice. Now here I'm just poking and prodding a little bit. And we end up finding ourselves in this situation where upgrades are the same, bases are pretty much the same. I'm still 30 seconds ahead on this Nexus as well. I have more Stalkers, but he definitely has the better tech. I still don't have charge. Upgrades are the same timing. And I'm actually very happy to see this, is that we started like our static defense around the same time. I think that is mostly because people like making DTs in the late game. I wasn't planning to make them this time, but it's definitely something that happens quite a bit in PvP. And I did use later on in this tournament as well. And I always figured, if I play against good Protoss players, they're going to do that at some point when they find the chance. So I just don't want to take the risk to die to DT, so I'm just going to make a cannon everywhere beforehand. I do have the Robo, so you might think, why don't you just make observers? Problem with observers is that you also need units there. And I didn't feel like having units at home all the freaking time. Like, that would be quite annoying. I made a little bit of a misclick on those Stalkers, sadly, so that's not going to be as efficient as it could. Now, charge is going to come online for me for now. I think it's a good time. Okay, that's perfect. Me and past me were exactly in sync. I was going to say, a good time to make a Warp Prism so we can go into the main. Here are going to be the extra gateways. One thing that I would have liked to see for myself is a bit of a note to future self watching this game, is that now the DT Shrine would have been quite good. Like, I'm starting to get up in gas. I have over 80 workers. Here I blinked past to kill a couple of Zealots, I believe. I didn't kill anything else. I was looking for a Disruptor. There we go. I killed the Disruptor quite comfortably. Didn't really lose anything in particular for that, which is nice. And we're just going to get getting a couple trades out here. I'm taking my 5th Nexus behind this. I have a slightly better economy, so any trade is quite nice, really. What you just want to make sure to not have happen is that he gets to snowball you in the fight because he can warp in closely. So you have to back off at the right time. Really happy with this micro, actually, looking back. I didn't blink unnecessarily. I just blinked back when I needed to dodge the Disruptor. So that is pretty good by me, actually. Yeah, looking back, I'm quite proud of these games. Not gonna lie, guys. It's pretty fantastic, all of it. And keep in mind, we're playing against Zaun, who's one of the, maybe like the 3rd best Protoss in Korea or something at this point. And the only reason he's not higher is because Hero and Classic are both freaking insane right now. Now, this is a point where we can run into a problem that I run into sometimes in PvP, is I like to play with a lot of workers. So right now, look at the army supply, guys. I have a lot of money, so I'm going to get a fat warp in. But we are going to be down in army supply, especially the longer this game goes on. And I have a Prism over here that I'm ready to send into the main base. Now he's going to push across with the Disruptors. And this is the first part of the disaster. Guys, just brace, because this is going to be a little bit of a disaster. First of all, I got owned by the pathing. So, yeah. I'm going to break it down for you guys, okay? Because it happens very fast, and it was pretty much a game-deciding moment here. So what happens is, I got owned by the pathing a little bit. I clicked my Stalkers over here when they were still a little bit too far behind. So 8 Stalkers walk to the back. I lose 5 of them instantly. Then what I did is I spent my time trying to blink back up here as I lost vision. And then this was roughly the moment where I looked back. You can see I select my Stalkers right in that moment, but I just wasn't in time to blink them away. And that was a very, very painful moment here, because if you look at the money I had, he also was ready here to snipe this Prism, which in the end wasn't bad for me, because then I could warp back here, to be honest. But I think I was in a great spot. I also have the 5th base saturated. Well, he didn't. But that disruptor shot, I think it killed about 12 Stalkers or something ridiculous. And if you look at this right now, I think I definitely would have defended this with those 12 Stalkers, but instead I'm not going to be able to. I did blink that one, but that one disruptor shot, that moment, ended up costing me the game. And that was very painful for me, because to be honest, I knew that I was ahead in this game. If you guys remember the Prism that died over here, if the Prism lives, I'm actually 90% sure I win the game on the spot over here, because I can warp Stalkers here instead of having to look back to warp them over here. But even this moment, if I didn't lose 5 Stalkers, actually, let's see how many the Disruptor killed. But, you know, we would have enjoyed that Disruptor shot if it was me. So let's give my opponent, you know, the satisfaction well at this disruptor shot. Let's see. That killed 10 Stalkers, and I lost... Actually, I lost all of them. So I lost 18 Stalkers over here, 36 supply. I'm up in money. I would have actually been up in supply if it wasn't for this one fight. I'm not gonna lie, when I was playing this game, here I thought I was slightly behind because his army just looked massive. He only had 2 disruptors, but his army looked pretty massive. But it turned out I was actually still winning at this point. So I want to applaud myself for that, because I'm very happy that I was able to keep up with him, you know, for so long in a pretty long PvP when he's so freaking good. But sadly for me, I did lose in a bit of a disappointing win in the end. I guess I can tell you guys about the rest of the tournament. I ended up getting top 8, so I lost in the quarterfinals to SOS, another Protoss. And if you guys watch those games, I would say that me and SOS were actually pretty close there. In fact, I would go... some of you might find this crazy. It is my opinion. If you disagree, you know, no fight whatsoever. That's fine with me. But I thought if I would have played that series against SOS 10 times, I would probably win more than 5. Like, I actually felt like I lost because of very tiny mistakes there. Like, one time I forgot my attack upgrade, so I kept taking trades. I was pretty much outspeeding him for the most game, but I just didn't have my attack upgrade, so I ended up losing because of that. One game I lost because I saw a DT shrine with my hallucinated Phoenix, but I just didn't register it, so my detection was delayed, stuff like that. I think if I play that series again, I probably win 3-1 or maybe even 3-0, so that's freaking crazy to me, because there's a good chance I would have even gotten top 4 well beforehand. I really wasn't sure if I was going to make it out of the group. So yeah, for me, very happy with the run. I had a fantastic time there, met a lot of fans, played a lot of cool games for the fans, and I really couldn't be happier. Obviously, we could have advanced further, but in the, you know, grand scheme of things, it's just not that big of a deal. You guys probably enjoyed the games. I enjoyed the games. I enjoyed the event, and that was a very successful event for me. And that's going to be it for today. So we showed you guys 3 games, 2 wins, 1 losses, 2 games with Terran, 1 game with Protoss. I think they were all very cool. And that's going to be it for today. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all for the next one. Adios.